Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
One thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lied.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
Peace and blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. How y'all feeling tonight? Grab a seat. Have a cup. I got water. I got soda. I got chips. What you need? Get comfortable. Just take your shoes off. I don't want nobody scuffing up my floor, please. I got Zay in the building. I got Coach in the building. Yeah. It just got real. We're about to talk. You see the title. Shout out to my poets, writers, content creators all across the board. Much love to you. Let me bring everybody up. Do me a solid, like, share, repost, let the people know that we are on. Zay, Coach, what's up? What's the word? What's the word?
Yo, what's good? What's good? Zay, your mic on mute.
There you go.
What's up, y'all? How you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good, man. The three kings in the building.
Yeah,
feeling
man.
good.
You're feeling fine, man.
All right, Sydney, I see you. I see you, Sydney. What's up? What's up? What's up? Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hello.
What's the word? What's the word?
Not too much. Just I've been really tired today, so I fell asleep after the stream. But all that talking about history and women being women, you know, took it out of me.
I took a nap also.
Hey, I'm not opposed to taking a nap. I go to bed early and all that. I'm not staying up to 12, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning no more.
We need to bring back siestas.
So,
hey, salute to the chat, man. 1998, Savannah. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. What we talking about tonight? I'm glad you asked. This young lady made a phone call to a gentleman, and She needed some assistance. The brother's response was not to her liking. And well, I will let the clip speak for itself, and we'll go around in rotation, initial thoughts, so on and so forth. Uh let's see. Do I want to keep the screen like that? Let me see if I can do something a little different with that. I might have to. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Roll the footage.
Hello?
Hello, hey. What you doing?
Shit, chilling. I ain't doing shit. What's happening?
Nothing. I just got a lot on my mind. Can you talk right now?
Yeah, what's good?
So hold on, let me go out real quick.
Okay.
So I'm just going through a lot and stuff like that. And it's the fourth or whatever. I'm trying to ask you a question. Like, I gotta pay my rent. These kids go back to school. And I'm just going through a lot right now. What you going on, like? I don't know.
What you mean you going through a lot?
I can't pay my rent. Like, I supposed to pay it on the first, and then I couldn't pay it. Like, I was trying to see if you got like a couple of dollars or something to help me out.
A couple dollars? Oh, what you mean? How much?
Shit, really just like 500. That ain't nothing. That ain't nothing to you.
500? I just had to pay my rent.
So what you saying? Like, these kids going back to school, like, you can't help me out?
I ain't got it right now.
What you mean you ain't got it?
I ain't got it. Just like you ain't got it, I ain't got it.
Man, get off my phone, man. I'm finna block you, man.
You gonna block me?
Yes, because I don't got time. You can't help me out or nothing. I gotta pay my rent.
Shit, help me out. You need to help me out too. Shit, it's vice versa.
Bye.
So you can't pay for my bills. You can't take care of my responsibilities as a grown adult. So in response, I'm going to just completely cut you out of my life for all foreseeable future. This be the same type of female that will get online, call you broke, call you a misandrist, tell you that you're not doing enough, that you're not working enough, that you're not a provider, yet and still you're on this man's landline asking him for assistance. You're not married, you're not engaged, doesn't even sound like you're in a relationship at all. What do you say to that? What do you what's your thoughts on how she carried this conversation and how he handled it, first of all? Let's go.
Entitlement.
You want to elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
I don't know what their relationship is because they don't sound like friends. They don't, as you said, they don't sound like they're in a relationship. They're definitely not married. To call somebody and be like, yeah, I've been going through a lot. My rent is $500. So, yeah, I'm going to send that over. Like, that is just, like, she knew what she was calling for. She didn't even ask how he was. She didn't even, like, she didn't care about him. She was literally calling him because she knew she needed the money and was hoping that he'd give it to her. And I just can't stand it. Like my first issue is, besides relying on a complete stranger to, or I guess relative stranger, to pay for your bills, why are you in that place in the first place if you can't afford it? Like, what are you doing with your money if you can't afford? She said it was $500. I'm like, I would be blessed to find a place that was only $500 for rent. Like, you're lucky if you can find something under $2,000 in most places. So what is she doing that she doesn't have $500 for rent? She, like, there's so many other ways that you could, there's so many other options you could do. I mean, granted, it's a difficult job market and whatnot, but like, why don't you have the money? If you know that you have rent due, why aren't you putting some aside? Like, I already know that she's, just from her voice, how she's acting, she's probably a high maintenance woman. So she's probably spending a lot on clothes, a lot on makeup, shoes, purses, whatever, taking herself out. Stop spending that money on places. Like, going to a restaurant alone is going to easily cost you $100. And if you go out every single night, you're gonna, that there's that $500 of rent. So you have to be like, if you're going to be supporting yourself, you have to be willing to make lifestyle choices to adjust to make sure that you can make that rent. And her relying on somebody else to do that for her, who she doesn't even have like a connection with, is entitlement to me.
Yo, Zay.
Man, I see these videos all the time, man. How many videos my boy sent me of just women thinking that it's okay to just call you out on the fact that you don't have money when you're in the same position as us. So, what I think is, look inside your own life before you over there thinking that it's okay to just badmouth anybody. Think it's okay to block someone. Okay, even if you do block me, I'm better off being blocked than be, made feel less of a man just because I don't got the bread to support you. And it's crazy because Sydney, touched up on it. Why don't you have the money in the first place? You know it's important, so why don't you got it? I'm just gonna end it like that.
Coach, you got first first of all, you got this person in your device as always begging. Let's start there. What does that mean to you when somebody got your name in their phone like that?
Yeah, man, that was the point I was gonna go with, was that would be, obviously, me, I like to talk about the patterns of, the reoccurring themes, and that would be definitely one identified if the name is always begging. So I mean, but then I guess it's just up to the gentleman to answer the phone, to his temperament. If she's always begging, is he always providing? So I mean, it's a reason why she's coming back. I'm sure there can be multiple reasons that he can say, but at some point he's probably leveraging and providing that money. So yeah.
Two things I noticed, and you called it out: the pattern, because it's not one-sided. I know you probably thought it was. It's not. He's an enabler, and she's capitalizing off of the opportunity that's given to her. The same way she categorized him as a wallet, he put her in a category of his own, and they're both moving according. My thing with it is, are you both aware of the situation that you're in.
Great point. Remember, we talked about this in the past, maybe a couple of weeks ago, by identifying what you have that some people may be using you for it, and are you using that for your strength or weakness? So, great observation right there.
You know, like some people, you know, that give in to those types of temptation, they are called tricks, right? So there are some women out there that, you know, they will label what they need from a relationship beforehand. So if you walk into that trap, I feel like that's on you. Am I right or am I wrong?
Talk your shit.
Yeah, it's definitely on you. That's where the accountability piece comes into play. So, yeah, absolutely. Great point. Great point, Zay.
It's kind of that fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like I bet the first time he did that because she was talking about her life, and I mean, she probably still had that intent in her mind, but he probably did that out of the goodness of his heart. Like, oh, let me help you. Like, you're in a rough spot. Like, I want to help you out. But then he started to realize that it became a pattern. It became her every time coming to rely on him for her rent. And even his first exchange with her probably signaled to her that, cool, I can always be short on my rent, so I can be more frivolous with my money because he'll be able to help me. And it's almost like the people that spend more money preemptively before they get that paycheck because they think that they know how much they're going to be getting. And so they're like, well, it's okay if I spend this much because I'm just going to be getting this money. But then they end up not getting that much. So then they end up in a hole. I feel like it kind of is the same with her, where she ended up counting on it so much that she was always going to be under because she just always anticipated that she was going to be getting that money and basically counted it as her income, which is ridiculously unfair to that person because he is not her slot machine.
Yeah, it's sad because when I'm listening to these stories, I can't really feel sorry for you because you put yourself in this position on both sides. I mean, let's say Sid and you're right, and you know, at the beginning he's just being nice to her. But then at some point he realized, oh shit, she's about to try to take this way further than. No, we didn't sign up for this. There was no agreement with this. So he put a halt to it. Or he already knew who she was and he just played his part. She probably didn't look at it that way. It come off like she just thought she found her somebody who was just going to fund her lifestyle. He wasn't really trying to deal with that. So
yes, it's just like expectation management. I mean, you know, if some people, as Zay said, they don't mind tricking. You know what I mean? And I think it just needs to be identified up front. You know, if it's not necessarily tricking, then is if I'm helping you with this, then maybe you're helping me in return with something else. You know, favor for a favor, and then back to that whole community thing. You know, it takes a community to raise a village. But I think as long as there's expectation management up front, if you're giving something and you're not expecting anything in return, as long as it's communicated, if you are giving something and you are expecting something in return, again, it has to be communicated. So that way, you know, it's understood on both parties. And then, you know, just handle it like responsible adults. So I don't think anything's wrong with it. It sounded funny, obviously. But, I mean, people do, you know, barter all the time, help you with rent. You help me with school, or you help me with watching my kids, or whatever the case may be. You know, those are the type of things that you can do, you know, within the community to help each other out. If not taking advantage of for manipulation and all those other things, obviously.
if that's the type of transitional or transactional relationship you want with a person, that should already be established ahead of time. If that's what y'all agree on, cool. But I'm stuck because she had a whole attitude. Why are you angry? What, like, first of all, you got kids from what I'm understanding. So you got kids. You don't have a husband at home. I mean, the way that this interaction is going, this ain't even your dude. You asking him to help you out in a situation where this is supposed to be a co-parenting nuclear household type of a situation where you don't have this problem. So you already out of order anyway. You should be going to your child's father. You should be going to your husband for that. But then on top of that, to add insult to injury, I'm blocked because I don't want to do for you. And we don't have no paperwork here. Make it make sense. And then you'll be the same one to go on the internet and say that this man is broke or he's this and that. Just because he doesn't want to give you his hard-earned money does not mean he's broke. Just because he does not want to take care of another grown adult does not mean that he's incapable of taking care of himself. So I don't like the narratives that get pushed in these type of scenarios. You're both consenting adults. You both decided to play mommy and daddy, and I don't know. I think it's just it's stupid. It's very irresponsible on both parties' part. See, he doesn't really have to blow your phone up. You block him, he can move on and find somebody with less responsibilities, someone that's probably going to match him. They're not going to be after his pockets every 5 minutes. And basically, he was. It comes off like he was just paying for it. So I get something out of it. You get something out of it. You want more for what you provide, which is probably not enough to his standards. He's not willing to meet you there. You don't like it. You think you doing something by blocking him. You're not doing nothing for him. The same way he found you, he can find another one just like you. If that's the case, and that's what I'm trying to address in general. See, it's not even just about her. It's the characteristics that she has that a lot of them have, and then you don't understand why things kind of be going in a negative direction. If that makes sense. I mean, like, you are basically giving your body away for a roof over your head versus actually going about it the proper way. Get you somebody who love you and care about you, that wants to be there. So, all right, I'm gonna yield the mic, but I guess my question is, why would you take this route, man or woman, when it would just, or better question, is it easier to just have this type of a relationship versus actually doing it the hard way, the old-fashioned way?
I think it depends on who you're talking to, man. The one or two things we would have to know: the age group of the individuals on the phone. I mean, because everything is pure speculation. So we don't know how old they are. We can't really necessarily, kind of compare the two, compare and contrast the two. But we are in the age where the common theme of the conversations we've been talking about is the lack of getting to know each other. The repetitive, we've been talking about, people cutting people off, identifying boundaries, identifying structure, identifying value. we've been saying so much. It's the echo chamber is getting loud. It's just that there's so many people out there that's simply all about quick transactional relationships, right? I mean, if you're with somebody for 27, 30 years, then you have obviously went through some shit, and then you can bounce back and talk about some shit. But if you can't even get through a week with somebody, and you guys are cutting each other off, the expectations that you have, you can't really talk to too many people around if ain't nobody sticking together. And that's the other thing too, is everybody's so independent, or at least they believe they are. There's not a need for having anybody else around unless it's a transactional relationship. And that's the problem, is they only see the transactional piece when it comes to monetization and things like that. But transactions also taking place in exchanging energy, positive energy, negative energy, with each other. So, again, people are just picking and choosing what type of transactions they want to identify with. They may be giving negative energy, but they may be providing a service, but that's not taking place of that positive energy that they're looking to reciprocate from. So they don't know how to give that because they wasn't taught that. And so they're just using what they have, the resources that they have. And the problem is the resources are just outdated. And that's why men are just like, yo, I don't need to date women anymore. I don't need to do this X, Y, Z anymore, because all the resources you're trying to use and the tools in your toolbox aren't applicable to what's going on in today's society.
You never know what factor goes into that particular situation. Like, for the guy's perspective, he might be interested because of that person's beauty, or because 9 times out of 10, lust does have a factor into it. They think they can get something out of the exchange too. It doesn't necessarily have to be sex, but it could be other things. But they think they can gain something out of it when it ends up being their downfall, if that makes sense.
If I'm going to pay for it, I just go somewhere professional. But I'm not even about to do that. Too much risk out here. Too many diseases. It's a slippery slope. You're telling the people in the public that this is all we have left. This is all we have to offer. You hear this, I'm independent. I don't need a man for this and I don't need a man for that. But your counterparts are saying something completely different than what you're saying. So you need to go have a conversation with your sisterhood about their patterns, and the brothers out here who are basically giving up on dating and saying, well, if all you want from me is my money, then I might as well just keep it right there with you. And then don't expect me to give you this and this when that's not what we signed up for here. Every conversation is, can you provide? Can you provide? Can you buy this? Can you afford this? You got to pay for the first dates. You got to pay for the first 4 dates. You got to take care of my kids, even though they're not your children. You got to step in and do for them, even though Bob X, Y, and Z. But I don't know. It's all messy to me. Again, like I said, though, if you want to do that, you can do that all you want. But make sure you know exactly what you're getting into, so nobody is confused at all. Ma'am, if this is why I'm here, then make sure you know I'm not a babysitter. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm calling you for some special yum time, and we go about our business and keep it pushing. Don't try to force a relationship on me, knowing that's not what you want out of this. You want a sponsor. You want someone to help. It's like you want a roommate without the other intrinsic things that come with the partnership in general. You don't actually want the person. You just want to make sure that you can take care of yourself because you ain't taking care of yourself. Or, and this is bad advice, but after everybody start their villain arc over, there's somewhere and let the decent folks live there. I said this a couple months ago about the T app. I say there's two types of men and women on the T app. They're the ones who are constantly in toxic relationships. And then you have ones who don't want no parts of it. They just got caught in dealing with that side. I said take all of them toxic people and put them in on one island, and take all the level-headed people and put them on their own island. Since y'all enjoy being in everybody else's juices, you like drama, you like competing, you like sleeping with other people's partners and all. Y'all stay over there and let the good normal people, let them find each other so y'all can stop messing up everybody else's stuff. What's so hard about that? Let me ask you a question, Sid. Is it easier to just have men pay for your life instead of, I don't know, working on yourself and actually being the type of woman that will get the husband that you actually desire so that you don't have to have these problems in the future? Is it easier just to lay on your back and have the simps and the guys who struggle versus actually being the type of man or woman that could have a husband or a wife in the future?
I never understood why people would subject themselves to that. I've always been the type of person that if I'm not happy with something, I'm not going to subject myself to it. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to do whatever I have to get the life that I actually want. So I've never understood why people would voluntarily, like, I don't even know what to call it, but they just willingly accept whatever's easiest. And I've never understood that, because to me, I think it's harder on yourself living the easy life. At least maybe that's just because of my personality, because of who I am. If you're living a life that's not yours, it sits on you. It sits on your soul. It sits on your mentality, and it sucks the life out of you. I've been in situations before where I didn't have the opportunity to live the life I wanted, to be the person that I wanted, and it was depressing. It was awful. Like it felt like torture sometimes, waking up and knowing that the life that I wanted to live was not there, and that I had this vision for who I wanted to be, but I couldn't be that way. I experienced a lot of that in college, where I was in like roommate situations with people that I wasn't able to be myself in, and it was torturous. Like it was really, really uncomfortable to be around somebody that I could not be who I normally am, and it felt stifling, and it affected my mental health greatly. So to have that sense of voluntary helplessness is not a way that I could understand why someone would want to live. It, as I said, it affects your mental health, and it also keeps you trapped. As I kind of said this morning with the other topic, when you voluntarily choose to let somebody basically rule your life for you, they're paying for everything, they're responsible for everything for you, there's very little autonomy. And if they're the ones doing all the chores, if they're the ones doing all the payments, if they're the ones choosing the car and the house and the whatever, you're not going to be able to have access to the things that you really, really want for yourself, because they're going to be the ones making all the decisions. And if you try and input your decision, chances are they're going to be like, well, I pay for it, so I get the last say. And it's damaging to the human psyche to live a life that isn't yours. And it, just like what Squish said, it creates a sense of dependence where you are forcing yourself in the future to be more and more reliant on other people. And you're going to lose that, as I said, autonomy. You're not going to have the option to direct your future in the future, because to have a say in what you want to be, you have to already have autonomy in the moment. So I personally think that, like, granted, it's very enticing, intoxicating to be lazy, to the idea of someone doing everything for you and you don't have to do anything, and they'll wait on you hand and foot and they'll buy you whatever you want. And it sounds like such a desirous thing, like in the same way that, like, imagine if all we had to do was eat sweets and candy and cake and stuff and nothing ever happened to us. But there's a loss there that people don't, it's like grass is greener on the other side. Once you're in that situation where you do not have access to the life that you actually truly want, then you'll start to realize. There were times, like even during COVID, where I couldn't go out and do the things that I cared about. I wasn't writing, I wasn't doing the podcast, I wasn't doing any of the things that deep down I needed. And sure, I got to do whatever I wanted. I got to watch whatever videos I wanted. I didn't have kids at the time yet. I had no responsibilities because we were living at his parents' house, and it was still soul sucking. Like I still felt every day dredged on and on because I didn't have purpose. And I think that's something that's missing when you are letting someone live your life for you or rule your life for you, is you no longer have a purpose. And humans overall don't handle it well when they don't have purpose, because we all have an internal sense of direction, an internal sense of who we are. And if you are letting someone else live that for you, you're not going to be fulfilling that deeper sense of authenticity that is needed as a human being. People always think like our needs are just food and water and breathing and having shelter and stuff. But there's a fifth layer of that where you need authenticity. You need to be who you are and to honor the values and stuff that you have inside. And again, if you're giving that away to somebody, that's going to do a number on you. And it sets you up for failure going into the future.
Hey, so I agree with what she said. But one thing that none of us is taking into consideration, I'm not going to say we haven't thought about it, I'm just going to say we haven't said it out loud, is you have to think about the mindset and the trauma that people come from. Some people are raised that way, right? So you only know what you know. So they'll naturally gravitate towards what feels comfortable. And if they weren't raised and they weren't empowered, but like you guys mentioned earlier, they were enabled to hand over their, let's say, rights, or hand over their decision-making skills or opportunities. And so they might not feel as comfortable to make those decisions for themselves. So the pattern may be, again, just using this story that we talked about earlier, it's okay to not necessarily have, like you mentioned, who will not have their rent money when they got kids. But I'm going to spend my money over here, not necessarily be responsible in this vein, because I can always call this person who bails me out. And I just typically may return a favor or two, in return. And that's a pattern that some people they live, they learn through growing up from certain traumas, from learning from their parents or learning on just how to game the system. As we everybody has learned at some point how to get over it at some point, how to take advantage of something at some point, and that's what happens is some people tend to use those skills that they learn for bad versus good, right? And so again, we have to keep in mind if that's a learned behavior that some people are learning and they're actually just implementing and thinking they're going through life by doing the actual right thing. So those are some of the things we have to think about as well, you know. And then again, being from an urban community, I think we all got some people that we can relate to that's might have put like some electricity in somebody else's name or did some other stuff along those lines. It wasn't necessarily the moral high road to take, but that was how they necessarily went about coming up or getting through in life, not being shown other ways, but showing the fastest way versus the actual legit way. So again, it goes back to learning, upbringing, and then those traumas. So the identifying those traumas is obviously what you would hope somebody would do in that relationship and say, hey, it's not necessarily my responsibility to take care of your rent. You should probably take a little bit more effort into making sure that you have shelter and a place over your head before you start looking at doing X, Y, and Z with your money. So again, learn behaviors, financial literacy, and different things along those lines, all education pieces that we either aren't getting along the way or we're figuring out at a much later point where we're already at a disadvantage. So, and that the common theme is always looking for somebody else to help out with your irresponsibilities.
I like both of y'all points because I feel like people's sense of purpose gets lost in so many ways. I feel like men and women, often blur the lines of what providing is. I feel like, people like me personally, and feel free to call me out if you think differently, but I feel like personally providing is leadership. It's not necessarily a give and take. It's more like being the person someone looks up to, or being able to take care of the slack when the other person is falling behind. I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be take. It can always be a balance. That's why I feel that providing means.
Real quick, to all my moderators in the future, if you see anybody acting a fool in the comments, I don't care. You have all authority to put them in timeout or ban them. We're not doing none of the ignorant stuff over here. So you have full authority to move according however you see fit. All right. Now as far as this go, it is learned behavior. I agree. But at some point, you got to take responsibility for your choices, right? You lay down and had children, so you have common sense. You got your license. If you have one, you got your permit. You were smart enough to get you a roof over your head for your family, right? You get up, get on the bus, use transportation. You know how to use these devices. You know how to scroll on social media. You're not dumb. So even though we can say, all right, my Aunt Nancy, she showed me this. Well, you're a whole adult now. That's like me blaming my folks for all of my shortcomings, well, I can say some of this is due to what I saw, but I ain't under your roof no more. You're not taking care of me. You're not feeding me. I'm feeding myself. I'm consciously deciding if I'm interested in this person or not. I'm investing my time and energy into this. I'm walking left or right. I'm wiping. I'm washing myself up. So to me, she's consciously choosing this because the other option is probably too much. Like True Whisper said, it's too much work. It's going to require you to look at yourself more, challenge yourself to be better than what you know you can be, and the hard work. Most people don't want to do it. It's too painful. No one wants rejection at all. Why not just use my looks to get me what I need, even though I know it's wrong? Now, if what I'm gathering is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if what you're telling me is that this man and this woman, they don't know any better, and they don't know that they're a detriment to each other because of how they grew up. So that's why they are the way they are. I don't know if I agree fully with that. I don't know. I can do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you don't. I'll just say this, man. You definitely are a product of your environment, and if you aren't educated beyond your environment, then I mean, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, that's why they say if you're the smartest person in the room, it's time for you to find a new room to be in. But if you don't know you're the smartest person in the room, and you continue being in that room, then I mean, you know what I'm saying? Again, it comes that lack of education piece. You gotta have that. You gotta have when somebody tells you the sky's the limit, and you should be aiming for the stars so that way you hit the moon. It's a mindset. You know what I'm saying? It's something that's built inside of you. And if you're in an environment where it's full of negativity, some people will figure out a way to thrive. Some people they just built that way. But others, and not everybody's built that way. And that's what makes people different. That's what makes everybody human. You know what I mean? But again, I just think surrounding yourself around those type of people, that's gonna hold you accountable, and then that's gonna say, hey, look, you're probably taking 2 steps back when you should be taking a step forward. You definitely got to surround yourself with those kind of people. But just referencing the person on the phone, it sounds like that they have been through that process before, and looking at the name that he had saved under the contact, that just hoping moving forward that he would try to hold strong and hold her accountable. But I'm sure if we followed up 30 days later, like Maury and the rest of them shows, it would show that he had probably given the $500 and they went out for chicken wings on Thursday. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It will probably be something along those lines, like you guys mentioned earlier, just enabling that behavior. And that's something that we have to start teaching and empowering and not enabling. And I think once we start figuring out the difference, because we naturally want to help people, we naturally want to see people get better, but it's harder to hold people accountable, because that's when the names start getting called and the mud start getting thrown. You start getting placed in categories where you're difficult to be around. And a lot of people don't want to be called those things and don't want to be identified as that. But that's the things that come with holding people accountable, because, if it was easy, then everybody would do it. Just my thoughts.
Going off of something that you said, I like to read lists of and write-ups of successful people. Like, what do successful people do, and what are their habits? And that's one of the things that is mentioned very frequently, is to find yourself in situations of success. You have to be willing to hang out with people that are better than you, that are professionals in their field, that are the pinnacles of whatever industry they are. You have to hang out with people that are in the positions that you want to be in. Because if you're spending all your time with people to make yourself feel better about yourself, and everyone's not as good as you, and you're the most talented person and the smartest person in the group, there's nowhere for you to rise past, because then you're only going to be comparing yourself to who you see beneath you, rather than working on yourself to better yourself with the inspiration of other people around you. Because when you hang out with people that are better than you in other ways, they're going to be able to give you advice. They're going to be able to guide you. They're going to be able to point out things that you would never see in yourself or understand on your own. And that is something that I think a lot of people don't do, especially now with social media and whatever. You want to be the best of the best, the most beautiful, the smartest, the whatever. And so to make themselves feel better, most people will just hang out with those that they see as below them. So that's definitely something people should consider doing if they want to better themselves, whether it's career-wise, just like your self-growth and that kind of arena. So yeah, it's a really important thing to consider, is that the people you surround yourself with are your future. And if you're going to be surrounding yourself with people that are not good for you, that's going to be your future. And this lady clearly is not surrounding herself with people that are going to better her. She's hanging out with people that are serving to enable her instead. And so she's very likely not going to be exposed to people who are going to challenge her to improve her situation. She's just going to be relying on the people around her to keep her where she's at and keep her in the same patterns. And it's a great example of why you have to keep self-improving, because if you don't keep self-improving, you're just going to be dependent on other people around you to make yourself feel successful, even if you aren't.
I just feel like I like your point, Sydney, because it just pointed out the fact that people are so inauthentic nowadays. I feel like people just try to put a fake version of themselves or a mask on just because they feel like they can benefit from this situation, right? But I feel like if you put your best version out there, you can automatically see what's not for you and what is for you just by putting yourself first. So if you keep doing that, you can point out the things that you don't want from the jump and eliminate it. So you don't have to worry about this problem that he's going through.
Facts.
One thing I want to mention too, on both sides, right? Because I'm looking at this like he doesn't really have that high of a regard for her, and she doesn't have that high of a regard for him. Like they're both looking at each other in a negative way, both transactional, but for the wrong reasons. And I think a part of that is due to what Sydney said, and actually what everybody said, to be honest with you. All right, put it this way. If I know you got low self-esteem, I'm not going to take advantage of you because you have low self-esteem. I'm not going to manipulate you into doing things that I want you to do for me, because I know that you cling to me for security in some type of way. If I know that you don't know too much about engineering. I'm not going to railroad you and have you working on something that could get the company sued for millions of dollars. If I am a married man or a married woman and I see a man or a woman out here moving recklessly, I'm going to give you the best advice possible. Why would I? And it's just my conscience. Why would I steer you in the wrong direction when you're already going in the wrong direction? I'd just be adding on to it. So if somebody's close to the edge, I'm going to give you an extra nudge over to the edge. Nah. But it looked like nowadays men and women are doing that to each other. But you look at it as if you're preserving yourself or you're protecting yourself. You're really not. So back to what you had said earlier, Coach, there needs to be a way to give chastisement, direction, feedback that help both parties. Now, if this is how y'all want to move after we say all that we say to you, because you could be a best friend to somebody or a cousin to somebody or a family member to somebody, you don't want to see them get used up. But if they want to keep going like that, then that's on them. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed too. They look like they're both actually hurting each other in the process, and I see that with a lot of men and women. I yield the mic.
No, good point. And that goes to a question I had asked, a few weeks back. The opposites attract, and a lot of people say they do, but the problem is, again, the recurring theme is maintaining that relationship. They may attract, but what's going to keep them together? And that's typically people like the opposite for the attraction, for the sparkly thing. Ooh, it's something different, it's something new. But yeah, that's true too. Rich attracts broke. But yeah, and same thing with positive and negative, right? I mean, because a positive mindset, somebody always ends up with somebody who thinks negative. And then, like each one of you has said, it's because they faking the funk. They're not necessarily being the best version of themselves. And it's just we're pretending to be who we can be for that initial meet, and then whatever happens after that. And then I think at that point, sometimes is when you should both be like, hey, look, we both did X, Y, and Z to get to this point. Now we should probably move forward, being truthful and honest in who we are and what's the objective. And that's the problem is we talked about, dating earlier and how it's not around anymore, the courting process and everything. Because everything is just to get in and get out. You know what I mean? It's just to be quick. I'm just trying to get in, see what you're talking about and get out of there. Nothing is looking for sustainability or longevity. Everything is looking for just the instant gratification. And that's the problem when you can't see the forest from the trees. You can't plan for longevity, right? When you're going in and trying to conquer in less than, 72 hours. You're not thinking about, man, this could be the mother of my kids, or one day I can help her to pay rent, or one day she can help me as a team. I'm trying to build a brand. Let's build this solid foundation. Forget the foundation. You're going straight for the high rise for 2 days and then get up out of there. So it's just, again, the modernization of how we all think. People, in totality, is just some stuff we need to start thinking about.
This whole topic makes me think of a video I saw very recently where a guy tries to shoot a shot by giving a waitress an $1,000 tip. And she ends up having a boyfriend, but she does end up texting him and thanking him, saying, like, you just helped us make the rent, so we really appreciate it. But it made me I was like, I wonder if that was her, but the other lady seemed really decent, so probably not. But I think that is kind of it makes me think of this because it's almost an indicator of what men think they have to do to get a woman, where they feel like they have to have all this money to be able to even nail down a woman and get in a relationship. And this is the type of behavior that will come up when you have that whole cultural identity of within dating, where if you have a majority of the population that believes that money matters more than love, you're going to have a lot more people like this that are like basically fishing for money in relationships or not even in relationships. So I think besides the internal aspect, the things that you have to do as an individual, I think it's also kind of a cultural problem as well. That I couldn't even explain how it came to be, but I think I mentioned it in the earlier episode this morning. Consumerism is definitely at play here as well, in the sense that women are now starting to see men as a commodity rather than as a partner.
Do you, all right, let me ask this question, because Chefs asked the question and then I see your response. Do you go to a therapist before you go to family? Like, I understand that we can't provide you with all the answers that you might be seeking, but at some point you might not be able to afford counseling, you might not be able to afford therapy. Some people don't even believe in it, right? What do you say to somebody who has this issue? They want to address it, but they don't know how to do it in the right ways. Maybe they come to you for advice and they pour out to you. I mean, they say, look, I ain't shit. I am a whore. I do this. I've done this. I've always had like this mindset. What do you say to them to get them to either go to somebody who can professionally help them, or they trust you enough to where they listen to you to the point to where they might even start to consider some of them seeds that you sown?
Man, I would say you always refer them to an expert, and you take the personal out of it, because the problem is people think too much with emotion, man, and not logic. And the first thing a person's going to say is, in my experience, in my relationship, one time I did X, Y, and Z, and that's none of those are answers for solving anybody's problems, right? So, and then you have to be able to hold somebody accountable, and you have to take out that emotional feeling to you. Somebody says, tell them to go to God, which is, you can do that, whatever works for you. But what you need to provide somebody is an accountability system. You need to provide somebody some structure. There needs to be checks and balances, right? So if you don't do something, there needs to be a repercussion for something not happening. So those are the type of things that you need to be able to do. And then, yes, absolutely being relatable. And that's the issues you have with a lot of people not necessarily seeking therapy, is you won't find a lot of, and I'll just say for our community, you won't have a lot of us in there. And so those are some of the issues. And then some people only want to relate to people that's got some type of street cred, right? Depending on what their background and upbringing. They only think people that can identify 100% of where they come from can necessarily provide them advice or understand what they're going through. Definitely understand that, but that's not necessarily 100% of the case, because you do have different scenarios and things that you can walk through. And again, it's just about being fully transparent. And then you said, as far as them not being able to afford it, And so after COVID, so many X amount of millions and millions of dollars is gone. So just mental health. So now you not only so with insurance you can get a therapist, but now you have different programs and platforms that'll pay for you to get a coach. And so a lot of things you have to figure out is what exactly is it that you're trying to be seen for, because there's a difference between therapy, there's a difference between coaching, there's a difference between mentoring. Each one there's a difference, and the common buzzword right now is therapy, but that might not necessarily be what you need. So again, it's getting with these subject matter experts and then taking these surveys and answering truthfully and honestly, because a lot of times we take these surveys and we don't answer truthfully and honestly. Some people call crisis hotlines and don't give them the actual real symptoms and things that they're going through. So therefore, the crisis hotlines can't even necessarily help those folks out that are actually going through a crisis. And the same thing, you listen to some of the 911 calls, they might give all the wrong information versus the necessary information to dispatch the actual professional to come out and actually provide assistance. So again, it goes back to an education piece, is understanding what you're going through and identifying it, and then having an honest conversation with yourself and then with somebody else. So yeah, I hope that provided you some type of answer. But go ahead, Sid. I know you're ready to jump in.
I was going to add to that too. Like a lot of people don't even have the experience to understand what are symptoms. They might think it's just a behavior within the realm of normal, because maybe their parents lived that way or whatnot. And so it's so normalized to them, they don't even realize that it's a red flag behavior. And to kind of touch on what you asked, I think you can ask friends and family, but it really should be taken with a grain of salt, and more so just kind of maybe allow it to give you some insight. But we have to remember that our friends and family are also going to have their own issues. They're going to have their own biases. And that's why they always say, if you're experiencing an issue, particularly addiction and like mental health issues, like disordered behavior, you should not be going to friends and family to get help like that, because you need an outside perspective that has actual experience, actual training. Psychologists and doctors are trained to understand how to identify specific behaviors, how to pick up on different things that a person is giving off, how to identify problematic behaviors in somebody based on what they're saying and not saying. And they have the experience to understand how to help others identify the problems within themselves. But family members and friends aren't going to have that. And even if they are trained professionals themselves, like, for example, my brother-in-law is he's getting his PhD in psychology. I still couldn't make him my therapist because that's a conflict of interest. He already knows me, and it would be unethical for him as a psychiatrist to take me on as a patient because, again, there's a conflict of interest there. He knows me, and he wouldn't be able to give an unbiased perspective. And that's something we have to keep in mind when we're seeking out advice. We have to, like you said, make sure we're seeking out actual experts, actual professionals, and not rely on hearsay from people that may not know what they're talking about. And also, for the love of God, do not go to AI. Grok is not going to tell you what your issues are. It's not going to tell you, like, sure, it might give you a list or something that you can follow, but do not go to AI. That is not a doctor. They're just going to pull whatever they can from the internet to give you a cohesive response, but that does not mean it's applicable to you. That's why working with a psychologist or a life coach or some sort of professional in that manner is very helpful, because they can give you a very specific pointed approach. They can identify your specific behaviors and problems and habits and stuff like that, and give you a tailored approach, as opposed to somebody, whether it's just like those apps, the therapy apps or whatever, where they just kind of like, well, here's what I think, and here's a broad summary. Like, they're not going to be able to get into depth with you and understand from a very specific point of view what you actually should be pursuing. And the other thing too is, this is honestly the biggest aspect, I think, is you have to be honestly willing to be vulnerable and to actually do the work, because I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls of psychology, of therapy, of going to life coaches, is a lot of people go into these with the mindset of they're going to change me and they're going to just point something out and poof, I'm going to be fixed. But that's not how it works. You have to put in a lot of hard work when you do therapy, when you do life coaching, when you're undergoing life coaching, because you have to dig deep in yourself and you have to be willing to do the work outside of the sessions. You can't just talk away your problems. The point of talking is to reveal the problems to you, but you have to go home and use those tools in a day-to-day basis. You have to make those tools a habit. For example, like an alcoholic, they can't just go to a session and the person just says, oh, here are things that I've noticed, like you use alcohol at these times, and you're not going to go home and automatically stop drinking. You have to also carry that through and notice your own signals, notice when you're feeling the temptations, find ways to divert your attention away from the alcohol and pick something else. And so I think that's a component that a lot of people miss out on, is it's not like taking a pill where it can make the symptoms go away. And I mean, even with medication, it doesn't make the underlying problems go away. You have to be willing to actually do the work and accept the responsibility of action. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that that's a huge component. That's honestly the most necessary component, because it doesn't matter who you go to if you're not willing to actually take their advice to heart and put their advice into action in your own life, because eventually you are going to get to a point where no matter what they say to you, if you're not willing to actually do anything, you're not going to make any progress anymore, because they're just going to be saying the same thing to you over and over and over again. And you're just going to keep going home and living the same life. So I think that's something that people really have to think about, is when they're seeking out help, are they actually willing to do the work? Because that, I think, is the most crucial component.
You know, the harsh reality is that a lot of people don't have real friends by their side or real family. I feel like, you know, people that they call their friends, you know, they will sometimes add on to the fire. You know, I feel like sometimes they don't even put your best interests at heart. So you always gotta keep that in mind, that because Coach touched up on it. You you want a friend that is also your accountability partner. You know, that is also willing to take the extra step to make sure that you're going in the best path for you. That's a true friend. That's a true family member. If they are offering to take you to therapy, that is good. But if they're trying to keep you on that same path of destruction and turmoil and drama, that is not your friend. That's not your family. So I just want to point that out there.
I want to address what PMP said a few minutes ago, because everybody, we have different belief systems, right? I'll forever say I will never push my beliefs on nobody. But one of the things that I appreciate about these panels is that you get a bit of everything up here from everybody's perspective. So if you're not someone who believes in the higher power, then guess what? Somebody got you covered. Now, me personally, I will say this. Throughout all of my years on this planet, the only person that has ever taught me properly about myself is God himself. But you know, the unique thing about it is he doesn't use just a person with a license to teach you a lesson. I didn't go to counseling to figure out about my abuse. I didn't have a teacher tell me that it was wrong for this to happen. I didn't have a member of the football team to pull me to the side and tell me smoking wasn't good for me. Life did that. The interactions that I created throughout every timestamp because of my choices and decisions. God put specific people in my presence to show me who I was, to show me who I was becoming because of the decisions that I were making. Everybody can't reach everybody. It takes a certain style, a certain je ne sais quoi. Coach said it earlier. You can be from the street and reach more people that way. You might not be from the street. You might be Candace Owens. You might be a random person on social media who just happens to have a delivery that resonates with specific folks. If you got the anointing on you, you're definitely going to touch somebody. So while I do not suggest that you go and just pray, I'm a firm believer in it, 1000%. Everything that I learned about me and about humans, I learned through word. I learned through trial and error. I can't really. In fact, let me just put this on record too. I don't disagree with nothing that anybody up here said. Awesome, amazing tools. Use them. We're all put here with a gift and a talent. Being a psychologist or anyone in that field, you have to have a special gift. Everybody can't do that. But just because they use big words, that don't mean that you're going to connect with them or relate to them. There's a good chance that they can get through to you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the only option. So you can it's God uses everybody. You don't have to believe that. I believe it. But God uses everybody, whether or not you want to be used by him or you don't want to be used by him. He'll find a way to get your attention. I don't know how many times he's done reached out to me through different people, whether it was to warn me about what I was doing, or it was to tell me to stop doing what I was doing, or it was to tell me, damn, you need to tighten up. You getting too out of touch. You'd be surprised if I told you that everybody up here, including people who have not even been up here in a while, they came into my divine ordinance through God himself. He's the reason why these connections are how they are right now, because of him and because of how I am and how I operate. He knows how I think and how I move. So he positioned specific people to connect to me based on my belief system and how I operate. But that's just my personal belief system. I'm not telling you one way or other what to look at or how to look at it. Just my 2 cents, of course. Now, if anybody got anything they want to say before we close out, y'all more than welcome to. And again, I'm not pushing nothing on nobody. These are just little testimonies, little experiences that I've had myself. Hell, I knew somebody for a very long time. They couldn't even reach me. But I digress. I pass the mic. Anybody? Oh, shout outs to everybody in the chat too, by the way. Appreciate y'all.
Nah, man, I well said. I think everything everybody has said has been well said. The part that they said that left off, because I was the one who read it and I didn't finish reading the whole entire statement. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page. I don't think there's any disagreements about that. Again, like you said, just being open, being coachable, and like we all said a couple times, just at the end of the day, just accountability is what it's all about, and then and communication. So I think if we just continue to hold each other accountable, and take the emotion out of it. It's hard to obviously it's hard sometimes, but just take a pause for the cause. Breathe, go through the process. You know what I mean, and just blow that shit out. It ain't personal. It's all to try to help each other and then become better version of ourselves. And I think as long as we got good intentions, then I think that's the only thing that matters. Yeah. Great chat.
Also, just to quickly add in, you also have to have a mix of all of the approaches to be most successful. If you're really trying to work on yourself, you should be getting input from your true friends and stable family members. You also want to get professional help. You should also be seeking stuff out on your own terms through means that resonate with you. You should be reading books from experts, reading books from spiritual leaders, reading books and watching videos from people that speak about this type of stuff that you're trying to work on. There's a lot of great resources out there. You just have to make sure that you're picking things that are actually relatively valid, beneficial, stuff like that. Because of course there is a lot of shoddy work out there, but there are amazing people out there that have put out some fantastic advice. Just to throw in, one of my favorites is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's I think he was a monk, but I know he was he speaks a lot on psychology and building yourself up. His name is really difficult to spell, but that's him. Also, Gabor Mate. There's so many amazing psychologists and leaders in intellectual pursuits out there that don't limit yourself. Seek out as many resources as you possibly can, because the more you know, the more you understand, the more you see in other people and what other people say, particularly people that are far more advanced in those arenas than you are, the better off you'll be. So educate yourself, and that'll do wonders for you in your future.
I just want to take a second to say, I love us, man. We're all willing to say what needs to be said. That's all I got to say for tonight. I hope everyone has a good night.
This was a dope one, a dope conversation on all fronts. Even the chat, special shout out to the chat, by the way, man. The chat lit up the room. A lot of dope perspectives, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with us tonight. If you are leaving for any reason tomorrow, be safe on the road. Have a blessed Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? We'll be back tomorrow. Tap in if you're available. You know, love to have you back. Always love to chop it up with the people. Enjoy the rest of your night. Do me a solid before you go, if you don't mind. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it?
What's the goddamn button?
Peace.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skip, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I am, my ancestors.